Hey everybody, good afternoon. Welcome to the Lunchtime Devo in 2 Samuel. Super stoked. Thanksgiving is right on the other side of this day, right? Next day is Thanksgiving, so hope you guys are getting ready. And it's my lunchtime. I just had my protein shake and I'm ready to go right back to work. That's how it goes. 15 minutes. Tops. That's all you need for lunch, right? Protein shake, ready to get back into it. But I'm going to read a little bit of the word today, this afternoon. So I'm glad you can join me. If you can join me, if you're listening to this on my archives at Bo Willette on the YouTube channel, hey, welcome and glad you're in. So 2 Samuel, and we're in chapter 3 right now. We're going through this book. It's great. We've gone from Genesis all the way into Samuel. We see how the narrative just keeps honing down. We're getting to something special. There's been a lot of promises of a deliverer. And so now we're getting into these really minute groups of people, right? To see who this anointed one will be, this Messiah will be. Well, we have this guy David now that we're talking about all the time. And his situation with he has a commander and of his military. The prior king, Saul, had a commander of his military. They go to war. They battle one another. Someone gets killed. Other people get killed. Hundreds of people get killed. Super sad. It's all this conflict within the family. I hope your Thanksgiving is one where you have a little bit of peace. So chapter 3 reads like this. That was the beginning of a long war between those who were loyal to Saul and those who were loyal to David. Man, you got the Republicans and the Democrats back in the day going at it, right? And so sad. They just can't seem to get any kind of, togetherness going, right? Some people really favored Saul. Other people really favored David. And people have died over this. And so as time passed, David became stronger and stronger, while Saul's dynasty became weaker and weaker. Okay? So we see that that's how it rolls in the world of politics, right? And these are the sons who were born to David in Hebron. Okay, so let's see who were born to David. The oldest was Amnon, whose mother was Ahinoam from Jezreel. Okay, we got that. He had one mom, Ahinoam. The second was Daniel, whose mother was Abigail, the widow of Nabal from Carmel. Okay, another woman. The third was Absalom, whose mother was Maacah, the daughter of Talmai, king of Geshur. Okay, so another person, right? Who has another mom, and which is interesting, right? Geshur, huh? Where is he getting these women? Maybe he's getting them from non-Israel tribes as well, right? Interesting. Fourth was Adonijah, whose mother was Haggith. The fifth was Shephathiah, whose mother was Abital. The sixth was Ithream, whose mother was Eglah, David's wife. Woo! So right there we got a kind of bunch of wives going on right now at the time, huh? And hey, this is the fact of the matter is David, man, had some interesting relationships. You know, if we were to break down our sexual lives, man, we're all in a little bit of a cahoots, aren't we? It's funny. It's like even when you think you're doing good in your sexuality, if you know yourself at all, you know that there's other things going on in you too. Yeah, there's lustful inclinations. Yeah, you might be with one person your whole life, but what's your lust like, right? Are you selfish? You know, have you acted selfishly in intimacy? Yeah, I think if you look, at your heart a little bit and you have God examine you, I think you'll find that you too are not perfect in this area. King David certainly wasn't. He wasn't perfect in this area at all. This is something that hinders us all throughout our lives. It's something that, relationships, especially sexual relationships, man, they really can cause a lot of damage. And it can be something that we have to deal with forever, meaning ever on this planet anyway. And that's so true. People's sexual lives matter. And, if you don't believe it, just look at politics. What moves people to vote a certain way? What moves people to have governments the way they want them? Isn't it because people want to do what they want sexually? I mean, we want that. And, sexuality matters. David, he obviously had a lot of wives, and he's going to have more, right? Because he's a sexual guy and he likes sex. And a lot of people do, there's certain things humans do. They eat a lot if they can, and they have sex a lot if they can. That's what people do. Boy, there's a word that a lot of people don't like, even myself, but yet is so needed in our lives. Restraint. Not suppress, but restraint, right? To restrain us from going in directions that we want to go in. Something to hold us back. God, help me today to learn how to have some restraint. So I'm not just doing what I want to do. What I'm pleased with, what I think is awesome, everything like that. Help me to learn this beautiful idea of restraint. What if no one restrained themselves? What if all of us did what we wanted to do every time we wanted to do it? Man, it gets out of hand. It gets out of line. I think of it this way too. What if everybody practiced what David does here? What if everybody practiced polygamy? Well, that would really be chaotic, wouldn't it? There would be a real weird situation, especially if we follow David's example here. One man for many women, that would kind of be weird, and it would kind of blow the, the ratio of things probably in the population. I'd make it a little weird too. I would imagine, you'd have a lot of children as well that way. Not just one wife, but you got 20 wives, say. Whew. What would that do to the population? Interesting. So there's always ramifications for our sexuality. It's so true. There is always ramifications. What was created at the beginning? God made male and female, one man, one woman for life. Wow, what a concept, huh? So David here, we see him, he's got good points, but he's certainly squirrely on other ones, that's for sure. And ones that, a lot of us haven't done so well at either. It's kind of interesting. I know it's a sensitive topic. A lot of people struggle with this topic. But it's one that is very much painted in the real deal throughout the Bible. And that's got to, bless you a little bit, right? The Bible's about real things. And so now we get into the nitty-gritty of kind of these military leaders and their conflict, the inside scoop of their conflict. Again, David's becoming popular. Saul's dynasty is mellowing out. David is producing offspring. Oh man, that's what a king wants, right? A ton of offspring to, keep his family in the politics system. Hey, in America, is family politics something that just continues on generation after generation? Yeah, we see that happening. So it says, as the war between the house of Saul and the house of David went on, Abner became a powerful leader among those loyal to Saul. Remember, Abner was his sidekick, his military commander. And one day, Ishbosheth, Saul's son, accused Abner of sleeping with one of his father's concubines, a woman named Rizpah, daughter of Aiah. Okay, so this is obviously a breaking of the command, right? Man, you shouldn't be coveting someone else's wife, right? That kind of idea. And here we see that Abner is a guy who also is, struggling again with his sexuality. Super common in the Bible, right? Absolutely. And Abner was furious. Not that we condone it, and not that it's right, but it's something that is common to human beings. Abner was furious. Am I some Judean dog to be kicked around like this? He shouted. After all I have done for your father, Saul, and his family and friends by not handing you over to David. Is this my reward, that you find fault with me about this woman? May God strike me and even kill me if I don't do everything I can to help David get what the Lord has promised him. I'm going to take Saul's kingdom and give it to David. I will establish the throne of David over Israel as well as Judah, all the way from Dan in the north to Beersheba in the south. Ishbosheth didn't dare say another word because he was afraid of what Abner might do. So what does Abner do? Abner says, you know what? I'm switching teams, man. If I can't have this woman, I'm going the other direction. Wow, dude, what a response. Boy. You know what? If I can't have sex the way I want to have it, if I can't do what I want to do with my intimacy, man, I'm going to that other party. That's right, because that other party is going to let me do it. What is he thinking? But isn't this how we think? Hey, maybe should I change what I'm doing? Nah, I don't think I'll change what I'm doing. I think I'll just find a group of people that kind of affirm what I'm doing. And then I'll just kind of ride that, Yeah, that's what I'll do. And that's what we do. I mean, that's what us humans do. That's what we do in so many things, right? Yeah, we intellectualize things, maybe come into a cognitive dissonance, right, in our minds where we're struggling, going, man, I shouldn't be doing this, but I want to do it. And then that cognitive dissonance gets so big that we find a group of people that really, are digging what we're doing. And then it eases that cognitive dissonance up quite a bit, doesn't it? And here Abner says, hey, I'm going to go play on the other team. I'm gonna go take my toys and leave, man. I can't believe I can't have this woman. I mean, golly, Saul's dead. Like, what's the deal? So kind of interesting, huh? And really kind of sad. And so Abner sent messengers to David saying, doesn't the entire land belong to you? Make a solemn pact with me and I will help turn over all of Israel to you. Remember, Saul had a lot of people following him even after his death. Abner became a very prominent person as the commander of Saul's army in the political sphere at the time. And so he's playing politics, with King David. And all right, David replied, but I will not negotiate with you unless you bring back my wife, Michal, Saul's daughter, when you come. Hey, that's cool, but you know what? I want my first wife back. Can you give me my first wife back? Hey, David, don't you have like a bunch of wives already? Is that enough? Well, no, I want my first wife too. She was awesome. I mean, I know she was given over to someone else, but why? I want her back. So David says, hey, go do this for me. Obviously, this was something on David's mind, and it was something that just lingered on his mind for a period of time. He wanted this woman back. And so he asked for her, and he says, for I bought her with the lives of 100 Philistines. Remember, he did that whole, I think he chopped off, their foreskins, if you will, right? And it was quite the event. We're dealing with some gnarly dudes, I must say. I mean, this is one of those areas where I don't know if I could hang with this conversation with Abner and David, man. I might be like, bro, as Christians, we might be like, man, let's pipe down a little bit. Like, hey, maybe not so many wives, or hey, maybe, all the killing's not too good, or, those kind of things. We would probably find ourselves very in an awkward situation if we were talking to Abner or David, right? I don't know if we could just put ourselves into the narrative and it would work. We would have a lot of struggles with this conversation. So Ashibasheth took Michal away from her husband, Palti, son of Laish. Palti followed along behind her as far as Bahurim, weeping as he went. Then Abner told him, go back home. So Palti returned. You don't mess with Abner, obviously. If you mess with Abner, rough stuff happens, right? What does Palti do? The strong-willed Abner says, go back home, and Palti says, okay. Some people get on Palti because they go, man, he should have fought for his wife, that kind of thing. But what would you do? I mean, how do you resolve conflict? Do you just, do you go up to the strong-willed person and you just go after them and just try to get louder than them? Well, if you're up against a strong-willed person, guess what they're going to do? They're going to just get louder. They're just going to get more aggressive, right? So I don't know if I fault Palti at all here, right? Sometimes you can't win the argument by jumping in the same ring, with that person. They're going to pummel you. And, I want to be wise where it's like, hey, there's some battles that I just can't jump in that ring. And I'm not going to argue like that. I'm not going to raise my voice like that. I'm not going to say those words. I'm not going to use swear words and cuss you out. And, it's like, what is the point at the, it's just, no, it's all emotion. And Palti goes back home. Meanwhile, Abner had consulted with the elders of Israel for some time now. He told them, you have wanted to make David your king. Now is the time, for the Lord has said, I have chosen David to save my people Israel from the hands of the Philistines and from their other enemies. Abner also spoke with the men of Benjamin. Then he went to Hebron to tell David that all the people of Israel and Benjamin had agreed to support him. Isn't that interesting? Abner, all of a sudden, he's like, oh yeah, David is the anointed one. It's like, didn't you know that all along, Abner? And you still, went to war against David? in his military. You hung out with Saul and you were his military officer, and but now, hey, you know what? Saul's camp's not pleasing me, so I'm going to just go do my own thing. And I hope I'm not like, I don't want to have that kind of finicky heart where I'm like, oh, this isn't working well. I'm going to do something radical. I'm going to, do this, or I'm going to do that, or I'm going to get out of this situation, or I'm going to get out of that situation. No, I'm going to help me to stay in the situation and work through it. I don't want to be like this guy Abner at all. It says, so when Abner and 20 of his men came to Hebron, David entertained them with a great feast. So Abner now entertains Abner, or David entertains Abner, and they're in Hebron. So David's, got a big party going on. And Abner said to David, let me go and call an assembly of all Israel to support my lord the king. They will make a covenant with you and make you their king, and you shall rule over everything your heart desires. So David sent Abner safely on his way. Man. So do you think it's going to go good? Do you think everything's going to be well? Do you think it's, what's going to happen? Well, let's just read through some of this and see what happens. What does Abner do? But just after David had sent Abner away in safety, Joab and some of David's troops returned from a raid, bringing much plunder with them. Remember, David's been part of plundering for a long time now. This guy is a plunderer, right? And it says, bringing much plunder with them. And Joab arrived. He was told that Abner had just been there visiting the king and had been sent away in safety. Now, Joab and Abner, if you remember, have been brawling, right? Remember, Saul's camp, David's camp. Military commanders from both camps been going at it for quite some time. Joab just gets done a raid, and he says, man, what's going down? And everybody goes, Abner's been here hanging out, partying with the King David. Oh, man. It's like when you're a kid, in junior high, and you're part of one crew, and someone leaves your crew and goes to another group, and they kind of diss you, they're kind of putting you guys down now. It's like they had inside information and now they're over in the other camp, the enemy's camp kind of thing. It's so trivial, right? It seems so wrong. And this is how it is even in politics today. People cross over into different areas, right? Then they bag on them, and then they rip on those people. But Joab, what does he do? So Joab rushed to the king and demanded, what have you done? What do you mean you're letting Abner, what do you mean by letting Abner get away? You know perfectly well that he came to spy on you and find out everything you're doing. Why are you partying with Abner? Don't you know he's part of Saul's camp? Even though Saul's dead, he's part of that camp, and he's probably just spying on you. And so Joab left David and sent messengers to catch up with Abner, asking him to return. They found him at the well of Sarai, and brought him back, though David knew nothing about it. So David doesn't know what's happening, but Joab is on a mission, right? Have you ever done something stealth where no one knows what you're doing, but you're doing it anyway? You know it's not going to be a good thing. And especially, your authority doesn't know what you're doing either. The person who's your boss or your authority head, your mentor, but you're doing it anyway, right? You're taking things into your own hands. Oh, God, help me not do that, right? Oh, but we do as humans. We take things into our own hands, right? Maybe I need to bring it to the Lord and say, hey, Lord, what do you think about this, right? And so, David knew nothing about it. And when Abner arrived back at Hebron, Joab took him aside at the gateway as if to speak with him privately, but then he stabbed Abner in the stomach and killed him in revenge for killing his brother Asahel. Well, what was on the mind of Joab? Revenge. God help us not be vengeful, right? Yeah, totally. Laura says, as a woman, I couldn't imagine sharing my husband. Yeah, totally. But that's what's going on back, right? And it still goes on today, right? We know in different parts of, every country, there's that kind of stuff going on. But man, this vengeance thing's really rough, right? Gosh, the New Testament again says, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. Can I love my enemies, or do I have to get back at them every time? So when David heard about it, he declared, I vow by the Lord and that I and my kingdom are forever innocent of this crime against Abner, son of Ner. Joab and his family are the guilty ones. May the family of Joab be cursed in every generation with a man who has open sores or leprosy, and who walks on crutches or dies by the sword or begs for food. So Joab and his brother Abishai Abishai killed Abner because Abner had killed their brother Asahel at the battle of Gibeon. It's kind of interesting, huh? You think David would, of all people, kind of come alongside Joab and go, "Hey, man, I know what it's like, man, to feel like you got to go get revenge, and I totally can sympathize." But notice David says to Joab, who Joab's been faithful to David, and what does he say, man? Cursed be you, right? And every generation, man, because of what you've done. Sometimes our leaders do things and we don't agree with it. Joab did not agree with David. But what should have Joab done? This is hard, right? But maybe submit. Maybe just come underneath. Even though David, should he have hung out with Abner? Partied with him? Should he have just neglected all that Abner did against King David and Joab's family? I don't think so. And sometimes your leadership is doing interesting things. And they're doing things that you don't quite understand. And you might never understand. But I need to come underneath it. And I need to ask God to give me a submissive heart. A heart that is willing to serve. And to be at peace. Knowing that God's going to judge that leader. For what they do. Yeah, and that I needed to just be about the business of serving the Lord. And, trying to be like Christ. Asking Christ to live through me. So David said to Joab and all those who were with him, "Tear your clothes and put on burlap, mourn for Abner." And King David himself walked behind the procession to the grave. And they buried Abner in Hebron. And the king and all the people wept at his graveside. Then the king sang this funeral song for Abner, right? David broke out a tune. "Should Abner have died as fools die? Your hands were not bound, your feet were not chained. No, you were murdered, the victim of a wicked plot." Whoa. All the people wept again for Abner. David had refused to eat anything on the day of the funeral, and now everyone begged him to eat. But David had made a vow, saying, "May God strike me and even kill me if I eat anything before sundown." This pleased the people very much. In fact, everything the king did pleased them. They saw that David was a person that, even though Abner did a lot of things wrong, he didn't want his kingdom, his kingship, to start out with, this kind of murderous rage, against your own people. And David, probably in his heart, wanted to stop this, wanted to see Israel united, and this wasn't the way to go about it. And Joab, again, did things on his own. His anger just got the best of him. And so all Israel understood that David was not responsible. And then David said to his officials, "Don't you realize the great commander has fallen today in Israel? And even though I am the anointed king, these two sons of Zeruiah, Joab and Abishai, are too strong for me to control. So may the Lord repay these evil men for their evil deeds." So you can see David's heart, right? As a king, wanting to have control of those that are underneath him. And, it's always not a good sign of leadership when those that are underneath the leader are really going stealth, right? Doing their own things behind the back, right, of that leader. Man, that doesn't make the leader look good at all. And David knew that. Gosh, man, he probably was bummed out. Like, man, I get on the throne. Abner comes to reconcile. And when reconciliation happens, what do? People in my cabinet blow it up. May this Thanksgiving be a Thanksgiving that when reconciliation comes into your home, maybe just brush aside all your resentment and your yuck and commit it to the Lord so that you can finally just dwell in peace. Maybe it's not going to be exactly how you want it to happen, but be aware of opportunities of reconciliation. It's sad that Joab, so close to David, just couldn't see that reconciliation was happening. He always saw the negative. And man, when we always see the negative, boy, bad things happen. That's for sure. Man, we assume. And certainly we see a lot of assumption on Joab's part, which leads him to murder Abner. And man, maybe my assumptions lead me to say things to people, go in directions that are just downright wrong and presumptuous. God help us, right? It's a long chapter, but boy, man, do we learn a lot of character things from these people. I mean, man, is the Bible relevant? Absolutely. We can learn a lot from this, right? Some people go to psychiatrists, some people go to the Bible. Right, a little joke, but yeah, we see a lot of behavior issues. You guys take care. Have a great Thanksgiving. Okay, bye-bye.